And so, but let's think about somebody coming in, sending bombs, missiles, and the army. Now, we have our little defense force and our police officers, right? But think about the U.S. Army coming in and taking over Bay Street, sending bombs through all the royal banks, the Scotias, what have you. What would happen to us? None of us, a lot of us won't have jobs, right? Because the head office is normally downtown, right? And so this is what happened in wherever Saddam Hussein was. And so they went to his country was thriving because, of course, they have oil, right? And so his country was thriving, everybody was working, but because George Bush Jr. claimed that they had weapons of mass destruction, they started a war. Now, America has been at war for 75 years, right? So they experts at war now, right? So they went in, blew up all the buildings, and then they went on a manhunt for Saddam Hussein because he had this weapon of mass destruction or what have you. And so they searched the country, and then they found nothing, right? I think that's how it ended. So that is where the proliferation of weapons, he couldn't just say, well, I created all this chaos. We killed the man. Remember, they captured Saddam. They took him to court in the U.S. He refused to speak because he said it was a donkey court. And then they sentenced him to death. And that was the end of it. Right? So all those people, nobody could have built back Iraq or whatever. Or, he was a dictator. However, his country was thriving. The people went to work every day. And it was, once you have oil, you have a lot of money. Right? So that's where the proliferations of weapons comes into. So that just means that we do not support any country or any individual that would create a bomb or any type of weapon, and what's happening now with North Korea. Anybody paying attention to the news? What happened? Yeah, so that means definitely we wouldn't open up accounts or, finance anything coming out of North Korea. Right? Okay. So normally in our Bible, that's the AML guidelines that come from central bank. We create our internal policy. You will see, you should have, like on the first or second page, the type of customers we allow relationships with. And one of the statements should be that, it normally starts off with nobody who embezzles money, nobody from fraud. Remember, we talked about the different crimes. No smugglers. You remember the different crimes from chapter 1? What else? Smuggling, theft, bribery, human trafficking. And so normally you list out all of that. We do not do business with these type of people, right? And then anybody with weapons of mass destruction or weapons proliferation. So that's where you would find that in your AML guidelines. So your salespeople will know up front, hey, if somebody comes in, I used to work in the offshore world, so this might be, you may say I work retail. Nobody's going to come from North Korea to open up an account in the Bahamas. But it does happen, right? On the offshore side. Anybody on the offshore side? Yeah, okay, so you're familiar with, right. So people will come from North Korea, or we had somebody who came out of, was it Iran? No, let's just say Italy. But he sold weapons to the army in North Korea. Would we open an account for him? No. Okay, yeah. All right. Okay, good. So any questions from chapter 1? Did everybody read the reading for homework on terrorist financing? No? Yes? Maybe so? We read? What did we learn from the reading? You're sure you remember now? Very comprehensive. You must like to read. Right? Because in order to answer these questions, it's going to be easier to create a scenario. Right? And I think some of you asked me to bring a past exam. Right? And so let me just give you a question of the past exam that somebody just had to reset on terrorism. And let me tell you what this question is. I have 2 of them. And this question was, 9/11 is the most significant study of terrorist financing. Discuss global efforts against terrorism and how funding may have been obtained for such terror acts. Y'all got that? Sure, y'all want me to say it again?
You can say it again.
9/11, and this is worth 10 points. And so how the exam normally works is you would have like 50 and multiple choice, perhaps 10 true or false, and then you have to answer between 4 and 7 essay questions. Each question is worth 10 points. So we need 10 points on 9/11 to discuss the global efforts against terrorism and how funding may have been obtained from such a terror act, to fund the terror act. So from what we read for homework, how would we answer this question?
First, you could give a general statement as to what terrorist financing would be. You define it.
So a definition.
Point, I guess.
Yeah.
And then the global ways, I'll say my next general point would be the fact that legislation is put into place, like the acts that would contribute to help enforce, the laws that come
to mitigate the risk, to ensure that nobody infiltrate our financial system, that we don't have an account for Bin Laden.
Right? And then the ways they fundraise, I'd say robbery, smuggling, stuff like that.
Okay.
And I just elaborate.
Okay, so you need 10 points. Very good. But give me one of the scenarios. Did they save billions of dollars? Remember we talked about how he lived for 10 years, right? With concubines and a 2-story house and lots of children. How? Donations and right, and it was by illegitimate funds and legitimate funds, right?
Crime, I guess credit card fraud, stuff like that.
They're still doing the normal routine what they normally used to do.
Okay, and let's talk about some of the legitimate ways they raise money. So anybody in here willing to go get a loan to fund ISIS? No? So why did they do it?
They believe in the cause.
Yeah, so they're sympathizers.
Ideology.
Yes. Okay, very good. You all read it. Okay, so this is how you get your 10 points. One of the typologies, and that's what you call the scenarios, that somebody went and got a part-time job for the summer. Told his parents he wanted to just save money. And when his father found out that he was actually sending this money that he made for the summer to ISIS, his father called the police. And they was able to intercede on, or stop that. A lot of people go on social media and they join these various groups. And the next thing you know, they're part of ISIS, or they work in sending a part of their salary, or a lot of charities, they start up like the Ramfleon. Could you imagine? Because I'm sure all of us want to do charity for the, I normally say I have to do some charity for the year. And could you imagine? I take my Christmas bonus, I take it down to the Ramfleon. And the Ramfleon, just like a share. Because, they have a patron, right? And everybody at the Ramfleon in private school, they have the top laptops, they have the top telephones, cellular phones or what have you. And suppose they say, because we have this patron, the patron is, right, a sponsor. Right, who would say, I sponsor this institution and I pay for everything for these kids. So they live a good life. It's sad to lose your parents, but they live a good life at the Ramfleon. They all go to private school. So suppose I'm a sympathizer because I'm so amazed or like I say, let's take the best out of it. Let's learn about Bin Laden's network. And so I decide, there's a position open at the Ramfleon. I'm going to go be, what do you call them? The head or the person who is, whoever, the matron of the Ramfleon, and I collect all these donations. But I already know this very rich person. I think this lady, Sassoon, she pays for everything for the kids. So all these small, you come in with your Christmas bonus, I send in this to ISIS. Could you possibly imagine that? But that's what's happening. Okay? So legitimate charities all around the world. And if you work in the offshore world, you will see it. We had about 25 clients, and I was at Royal Bank Trust, that said, give all their money to charity. And not only upon that, some people were single, they say I have no kids, no family. Every month, send $10,000 to this charity. And you don't know. Because if you look in the newspaper now, they're looking for a matron for Hands for Hunger. The other day, they was looking for the Autism Association. And anybody who was qualified could take these positions. right? And they normally are in charge of who gets what or how the money is distributed, right? So you really want to do some background search, especially if you're sending money overseas. You may not, you may just be taken advantage of. Okay? So what do the terrorists do with this money? Yeah, they recruit, they train, they buy weapons, right? Okay. So basically, that's how you would answer that question. You would say the purpose, they do it by legitimate and illegitimate sources. It's everyday people who can be taken advantage of, or some people go out and find a part-time job. You could any one of those scenarios on how they made money, and you would have picked that up in what you read is what you could put to answer that type of question. Okay. Let me see the next question on AML. Okay, the AML question here says explain placement in the money laundering scheme. How would we explain placement? Okay, remember now we need 10 points, and this is just an overview of chapter 1 and chapter 2, so you would see the type of questions that would come up. How would you explain placement? Let's start with the definition, of course, and it's basic essay writing. An opening, an introduction, your 3 points, and then your body, and then your conclusion. So we want to talk about placement. First, we'll talk about a definition. Then we'll use the word. Remember, I said typology, the ways and means they use to get this money into the system, and then a scenario of what happened right here in Nassau, Bahamas. Okay? So, what is placement? Okay, introducing funds. Okay, so we need 10 points. We introducing funds into the financial system. What type of funds?
From criminal
Illegal. Right. Okay, so illegal funds from criminal activity into the financial services sector or the financial system. That's enough to get 10 points?
No.
What else? Tell me what else you could.
Because this is really say the funds get into the financial.
Okay, give me a way. If you was here last week, I told the story about my peanut guy, right? Well, tell me what I said. I just want to make sure you all have that story down pat.
He said he sells peanut. He makes about $5. I think it's a day or a week or something like that. A day,
Yeah.
and then he'll be coming in to deposit. He wouldn't deposit every day, but if he is making $5, that's like what, $25 a
He
week
deposit $50 a month.
Yeah. So he religiously bought that money, right?
until a couple
Okay.
months later.
Mm-hmm.
He decides that he wants to deposit $5,000.
Okay, so can you write that in an essay?
Yeah.
Remember, you need 10 points to explain placement. Right? So you create the scenario of how they would have placed the money into the system. Okay, so he bought the money, and then what happened? What's wrong with him bringing that money?
He was suspicious because he doesn't.
It doesn't really norm.
Yeah, it doesn't fit into his profile. So again, when he would have opened the account, and you could probably put all of this, this might be a little bit of fluff, but you could put this. Yeah, so he opened the account, he established the profile, saying that
He can only put in this amount
he can
of money.
afford this
Now
amount.
He putting in more than what his profile picture stated.
Right, and we're going to go further into customer due diligence today. There's normally a form, it asks you what range, what amount, how often will you deposit, the frequency. Then it also talks about where do you work, how much money do you make. It really depends on which institution you go to. Some are more detailed, some are, less stringent. And so from this profile, we deem the transaction suspicious because it's out of the norm. Okay? And so that's how you would get 10 points answering that question. A lot of persons, you know what they put? The definition of placement, they leave it. End of story. Okay, so when you get to the exam and you see these questions, ensure that you look at the points and then you know, I need to create a scenario or I need to be able to explain this. So I tell everybody, go home and, you know, there are 8 chapters in the book. Put 10 points on each chapter and then you should be successful and you'll be okay. Okay? So as we go along, I'll give you a question from past exams on. So you got your question on chapter 1 and you got your question on chapter 2. Right? We good? You sure? Everybody just looking at me like okay. Y'all can slow me down if y'all need to slow me down. Anybody? Terrorist financing.
Terrorist financing.
Mm-hmm.
What they do and why. I think that's what you were saying.
Yeah, what they do and why. And so you had some homework. You had to read. Right? Everybody got a handout? And those who don't have a handout, what are you going to do? Get one from your friend, right? Because all of us are now friends. Okay, very good. 50 new friends. Very good. Okay, and also some tips on what you need to do as a new compliance officer. Anybody subscribe to the Bahamas Financial Services Board? Anybody subscribe to their regulators' website? You? Okay, one person. Good, good. Okay, to the Securities Commission? Anywhere? Tobacco? No? Why are we doing this? Why are we subscribing to these places?
To get information. To get
The network.
To get information as well. And what happens is, what compliance responsibility is dissemination of information to the entire organization. And so one of your job functions, and you should be mandated to do it, is when these laws are updated, like all our laws were updated in 2018. It wasn't the credit department, if it affected them, or the loans department, or operations. It was compliance job to say all of our laws were updated. These are the sections that are applicable to you. Please ensure that you read them. Please ensure that you understand them. And please let me know if you require training on them. Right? And Central Bank came in to an institution where I work. They did an on-site visit. And they said, please provide me with confirmation that you disseminated information to your institution on all the changes that happened last year. Okay? And if I didn't have that proof, what did I get? An audit note. Right? When you get too many audit notes, what happens?
Fine.
Yeah, the institution get fined and you get go home. Long vacation, right? Okay, so that's why I say, as compliance professionals, we read the newspaper every day. That's a part of our job. Persons would come in and say, Ms. Bull, did you really have time to read the newspaper, all that paper on your desk? We were mandated to do it. And not only the newspaper, I worked in offshore, that means we had international clients. And so we had a big book of Venezuelans. What did that mean? What did I have to do? How? Fly to Venezuela and get their newspaper? What I just do? Subscribe to CNN, put it on my Facebook page so it could, if something happened, it could hit me. And, I don't have to go looking for it. Subscribe to their regulators, right? And I told you all the story about when one of my clients got arrested in Switzerland. Okay. How did I know right away? You all know what has happened in our court system? What has happened in our court system? When you find things out 10 years later, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so if it wasn't for social media, you would take full advantage of it. Okay, and all of these are little tips to help you be effective. Right? Okay, good. Y'all sure I just ain't wasting my breath talking? Y'all listening to me? Mm-hmm. You sure? Okay then. So if y'all listening to me, who read the next 2 chapters? Because chapter 3 was just a list of the framework, so there wasn't much reading there, right? And we covered a little bit of it. Where do these laws come from? Where's the AML and the CFT?
Anti-money laundering.
No, but I want to know where they come from. Who's the parents? How were they born? Which island? Okay, so remember I talked about international bodies, the FATF, Financial Action Task Force. They came out with 40 recommendations, right? And these recommendations are trickled down as IMF, the FATF, the Basel Committee, the Wolfsburg Association. There's all sorts of international bodies that regulate the world, right? And so they put in 40 recommendations back in 2000. Remember, we were blacklisted. And when they put those 40 recommendations in 2000, they said the Bahamas is deficient in so many ways. This was back in 2000, right? And so what we had to do, we came out with a slew of, that's how the compliance department was created, right? Because prior to 2000, there was no compliance department. Compliance is fairly new, 20 years old. It's not been around like finance and operations and what have you. So it's a fairly new department that was created from these regulations, right? And so countries, they did what they had to check the box. Remember, I told you, we checked the box. We put some stuff out there. We put the shell, but we didn't put any meat, right? And so for a very long time, even after September 11, the FATF created the 40 recommendations in 2000 or in 1999, and in 2001 they created 9 special recommendations just for terrorism. 9, yeah.
So what is the
CFATF.
look at it.
Yeah. Okay. So the FATF is the world, right? CFATF is the Caribbean Financial Action Task Force, and then there's an Asia, then there's a Europe, right? So, you can't deal with the world, so they have it organized into different sectors. So we would fall under the CFATF, which is the Caribbean one, right? And so what they do is they do these mutual evaluations, right? And so we had our mutual evaluation done in July 2017. So what do you think happened? We put those laws in effect in 2000. In 2001, September 11 happened. They created 9 more. Did we update?
No.
We only update if we blacklisted, right? And remember now, it ain't only the slackness of our government. Regulation is expensive. Remember, you now birthed the whole compliance department. That's salaries. And I'm talking about the head of compliance should make, like I said, between $80,000 and $90,000, and a compliance officer should make 50 plus. Right. So and you need at least, depending on the size of your institution, about 4 persons. So that's expensive. Anybody ever see the laws? I was looking at the FTRR today, 125 pages. No, 78, and FOCA was another 70 something. Right? And now you have to go and put all of these policies, internal policies, in effect in your institution. You have to create controls. You have to hire more bodies. You have to do proper segregation of duties. So you have to have a preparer and a verifier. So you see how many positions created just out of this, So regulation is expensive. Then you have to keep updating. You have to stay current. You have to go and get special training. So all of this is a cost to the institution. And so if the institution cost rises, the customer cost rises. And then you see it coming out like with retail, you see Royal Bank charging $10 for a withdrawal or cash in a check, $2 for a deposit, all these different things. So that cost is always passed on to the customer. Right? And so it's expensive. So not only was it expensive, we are known as a what? Tax haven? Right. And so therefore, we are no longer attractive to the American, to the European, to the person out of Switzerland to come open up their account, and especially in the private banking sector. Like when I worked in private banking, we charged them $3,000 a year to just operate that account. We paid all their bills, paid their children's school fee, fed their horses, paid, shop for them. Some people own islands. We bought all the stuff for their islands, stuff like that. And they paid us $3,000 a month. A year, sorry. Why would you bring your money here 10,000 miles away from you? Was only to evade the tax, right? But now another regulation has just come out, and it's called CRS. Y'all should be familiar with FACA. FACA is Foreign Tax Act, where we sign treaties with the U.S. and we say every U.S. citizen, we're going to let you know how much money they have in this account, right? And so they file their taxes in March of every year, and we let them, the IRS, know Miss Bullet has an account here. She already filed her taxes, and she said she only had this $50,000 in her U.S. account. But in the Bahamas, she has 50 million, right? And so what do you call that? Tax evasion, right? And so you get like 10 years in jail and $500,000 fine or what have you. Now remember, I filed in March. The Bahamas reported me in July. So what does that mean? I didn't disclose that because I didn't want to be taxed, because there's a 30 or 40% withholding tax that I must pay the U.S. out of my $50 million, right? So of course I don't want to pay that, right? And that's why we hide the money offshore. So they put a law in now, CRS, to stop that, every country in the world. So all of that now makes us less competitive. I don't know if you also saw numerous banks closing down. Numerous offshore banks. I was at Royal. We closed because we were being sued, but all of that helped, you know. It's very, very costly, and it closed out the sector. Banking used to be 20% of GDP, is now 3%.
Wow.
That means we lost 17% GDP, right? In banking. So banking used to be the number 2 sector. Remember, number 1 sector is tourism. Number 2 is financial services. I don't know what it is any longer. But I'm certain. But I don't think we have anything else, right? No manufacturing, no nothing else, right? So
where are we?
okay, we just there. People don't like to talk about it because it was a grave loss, but it's because of all this regulation, all this policy, all this procedure that had to be put in place. Okay? But we are so small. We cannot argue. We cannot fight with the US. We cannot fight with the UK. We cannot say no. We are going to remain independent. Turks and Caicos is non-compliant. And so they get less funding. They are blacklisted. They are on all these special lists. And Turks and Caicos right there, like our sister country, right? So, but they don't even have a central bank. So it's a little different for them. But how we are established, how we have a central bank, the regulators have to enforce international law. We are part of the UN. We have to do what they say. And then whatever the US say, like we just have to do it. Because they can turn off our food supply. The other day, I think we talked about this when Hubert Minnis went to meet Donald Trump. Everybody was up in arms, like, oh, how could he go and meet Donald Trump? How could he not? Could he say, no, Donald Trump, I don't support you, I'm not coming? Could he have said that to the U.S.? Okay, and what did they want to talk about? The influence that China has on us, right? Don't borrow all that money to fill that port from China. China just acquired 3 or 4 ports around the world. So be careful before China becomes as influential in the Bahamas as we are. But they already here, and they as influential as the US is, right? Yeah, they just seeping their way in. But what they do is they prey on countries that borrow. And that's why they want to lend us $1.2 billion to develop that port. They just acquired Guatemala's port and 3 ports in Africa for non-payment. Okay, and so this is why you read the news, because you need to know what's going on in your country. These are the type of water cooler conversations you should be having. This is when you go to the industry updates and the briefings and what have you. These are the type of things you talk about, what's going on in the news. Right? So if you want to be a compliance professional, you have one job in the morning. When you reach, you get that newspaper and you read it. You take out the clippings that are relevant to your institution and you disseminate them. Okay? Because audit does ask, how are you disseminating information? Show me proof that your institution is aware of what's happening in the economy or in any country that you deal with. Okay? So, who's my reader today? Not all at once. Calm down. Everybody will have a chance. Remember now you get 10% for participation. Everybody have their 10% after the first class. There's only 4 classes. I have a clipping from the newspaper that y'all should have read. No? Nobody have a clipping? So I want y'all to remember, I say you get 5 extra points for going to Toastmasters, Kiwanis, or Rotary. You get 5 extra points. Y'all ain't gonna need 5 extra points. This person who test I just marked yesterday, she only passed because I had that 5 points because she went to Kiwanis. It's a good thing I remember. She almost failed and had the reset the whole entire class. No takers? None of y'all, all of the straight A students.
What happened?
Straight A students, all y'all, 70% to pass this class. Okay?
I don't like
Okay, there you go. You're not really on the front, so you can stand right there. So just to tell us some stuff about the laws. Okay, since it's only 2 pages and it don't really say much, it just tells you what the framework is. You know, and like I said, these laws are like 100 and some pages. Your regulator, whether it's the Insurance Commission, the Compliance Commission, who else? Central Bank, the Securities Commission, they normally give a guideline, which we call the Bible. She has the Central Bank one, and they put it into layman's terms. Right? And so we just can really call off the laws so you can know which laws to be familiar with. And then have your guideline to know where you're getting your policy, where you're getting your information from. So from international bodies, they made all these recommendations. We put it into laws, these 6 or 7 laws, and then we create guidelines to help. Because like I said, a lot of us don't have access to legal. And you all ever read some of these laws and all the funny jargons and the legal terms? Yeah. So that is why our regulator created the guideline for us to, you know, be able to better interpret it. And then we create our internal policy. And what you call that a compliance legislative matrix. That's how it works. You're looking at me blind. Tell me how it works. Anybody? No?
maybe the FATF.
No. How are these laws established?
From
Based
the
on
recommendation.
The international bodies, they make recommendations.
Child maternity law,
Mm-hmm.
regulators create
internal.
guidelines,
Mm-hmm.
and institutions create their own guidelines based off recommendations from the
And if anybody read chapter 3, or 4A4, you would see then there are statutory requirements for training. So once we put this guideline into place, then we are required to train all of our staff. I wonder if y'all could put that question in an essay. Okay? How are laws established? No?
International bodies.
If y'all ain't getting me, tell me I could slow down so y'all could, I need to slow down.
International
Okay.
bodies.
Can you just repeat it?
Okay. International bodies. So we call them the international regulators. They establish recommendations. The FATF, Financial Action Task Force. 40 recommendations, 9 special ones on terrorism. Okay? They create, they put out these recommendations that countries must adhere to be compliant. Right?
Is it FAT?
FATF.
That's where the 40 recommendations
Came from, yeah. And then we put them into our own law. So we have the FTRR, the FTRA, the ATA, and we go into, that's on chapter 3 right now. You don't have to write them down, they're right there on chapter 3. Yeah, those ones, yeah. Okay, so this is our AML framework, anti-money laundering framework, right in the Bahamas. Then our regulator will say, oh, that's not in layman's terms. You won't understand everything it says. you may not necessarily have a legal person on staff, right? And so let us create a guideline. And that's a guideline there for the central bank. Securities Commission has one, Compliance Commission has one, Gaming Board has one. All the regulators have their own. That one is 91 pages. Okay, so it's still lengthy, right? On what the do's and don'ts, right? You then take that 91 page document and you create your institution's policies and procedures. Right. Anybody familiar? Did anybody go and look to their company's website or ask their compliance about their AML guidelines? No? Get familiar? You should know it, especially if you're in this class. Right? You should know what your source document is and where you refer to make decisions. Remember, I said it's decision based, right? But you have to say, the FDRA states A, B, and C, I must do A, B, and C, or central bank guideline says this, and my decision is based on that. You don't just willy-nilly make a decision or use your own personal judgment. You document it. My decision is based on A, B, or C. And that's the next thing. You have to be able to make a decision. There's no operation manual that says if A happens, press the button here or there. This compliance is completely decision based. That's why you need to have sufficient knowledge and sufficient experience, and you need to be able to network, online. Yeah. So just like law, we are common law jurisdiction. Lawyers refer to previous cases. It'll be very, very hard for you to find there are no cases in compliance because a lot of these things happen in financial institutions and they are very confidential. Now, if it goes to the news, then you will say, okay, well, this person was charged or what have you, and you can use that as an example. But for the most part, it's your judgment and your training and your knowledge, and you have to make that decision. And every day, like I said in my last position, my days from 9 to 12, we had a generic box where we accepted questions. And from 9 to 12, I answered questions almost up until 2 o'clock, and then I had to do my work. All day, the entire institution comes to you and asks for help. And they can't ever make a decision. They don't ever do research. They don't, we have to send them back and say, well, bring me some meat, and then we'll decide. But most of my day was just answering questions. So you have to be knowledgeable, and you have to know where to get the information from. And there's a vast amount of information. So you have to be organized and at least know that I should go to the FTRR, know that I should go to the anti-terrorism act, you know what I mean? Know that I should refer to central bank guidelines. Right? Okay, good. So let's read this clipping and see where we are with the laws.
Okay. The Bahamas' Financial Transactions Reporting Act 2018 will address all of the deficiencies.
What year?
2018.
When these laws come out?
2000.
So 18 years later. Continue. I just want you all to see how
Will address all of the deficiencies that were identified in respect to the country's compliance with the recommendations of the FATF, according to the Attorney General and Minister of Legal Affairs, Senator Carl Bethel. Addressing a stakeholder meeting with industry regulators and members of the Bahamas Bar Association last week, Bethel said the act will, in a broad sense, be the heart of the system of compliance and due diligence that will henceforth be the standard of conduct to be expected of all participants in financial services. The stakeholder meeting was hosted by the Office of the Attorney General in conjunction with the BBA as part of the 2018 legislative series. Senator Bethel provided an overview of the FTRA during the first session. The Bahamas, he said, was found to be deficient in 22 of the 40 recommendations, including the FATF's mutual evaluation for late 2015. Further, the Attorney General said the present administration received notice between late May and the beginning of June 2017 and has been working assiduously to correct the situation ever since. You only need to be deficient in 21 of them to be where we are today, said Bethel. One of the things that was required was to bring into effect an updated FTRA. Drafts were found in the ministry's files but had not been progressed. They weren't aligned with the FTF's recommendations. Bethel noted that the FTF breaks their recommendations down into almost microscopic suggestions that are called methodologies. And so you have the recommendation. To comply with the recommendation, you have to show that you have the methodology in place and are implementing it. How do you get the methodology in place? You have to craft laws almost with microscopic attention into these methodologies. That is the process we have been at. And so today, we now have an FTRA. We will have a fully compliant and acceptable FTRA that will meet all of the deficiencies we added. Bethel also addressed matters ranging from compliance to lawyer-client privilege. Bethel said the session with the stakeholders group was a necessary part of the stakeholder consultative process on the FTRA, as lawyers, attorneys, and accountants are now being looked upon as financial institutions globally. They were previously designated as non-financial businesses and professions. Lawyers and accountants and certain other professionals were never treated as financial institutions before, he said. They merely had duties of customer due diligence, making suspicious transaction reports, possibly, but they were never given the duties of being a financial institution. That has all changed. They are now in the category of a financial institution. Now, attorneys, apart from having the usual due diligence, they must verify it. That's kind of enhanced due diligence that is now required because the standard is now obtaining and verifying. The second aspect of it is, of course, that as financial institutions, you are now expected to comply and to be regulated. On the matter of lawyer-client privilege, he said, we all know that privilege does not extend to the issue of or in any way facilitate the commission of a crime by a client. So there are limits to privilege. It was suggested to myself and my staff in a meeting with the Bar Council that we look at the situation in Canada, whereas it is well known that the Supreme Court ruled that lawyer-client privilege was akin to an absolute right and that any intromission into this territory violated certain articles of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedom. And so Canada is habitually, in their mutual evaluations, giving negative ratings on this whole issue of the legal profession and privilege because it is inaccessible that they are unable to comply with the recommendations that they, as a member of the FATF, are party to imposing on the rest of the world. But the reality is that Canada is a country with enormous natural resources, 40 to 50 million people, and a standing army, navy, and air force. They do not need the world as much as we do. We have an entirely open economy. We are an integrated part of the world, and we are very small. We do not have the luxury that Canada can enjoy. Bethel said it is expected that lawyer-client privilege will be kept within due bounds. At any time, counsel is aware of any anything untoward, it is mandated by law that STRSs be generated. Let us remember that it's not survival of the fittest, it is survival of the smartest, and I always say about this blessed country that we may not have natural resources such as iron or steel. We may not have rare earth minerals, we may not have large quantities of agricultural land to speak of. So we have had to learn. We have learned 400 odd years to not only survive but to succeed but to succeed because we use what God gave us to clean our hands, which is our brain. We have to think not only to survive but to succeed.
Okay. Good. We get it, right? So not only us, we put in the share. Canada would have done a lot more. They are part of the FATF, but they don't agree with every single recommendation. And they did what was in the best interest of their country. Like when we put these laws in, it wiped out our financial institutions, right? For the most part, the heavy regulation, the cost of doing business, what have you, we were no longer attractive. But here is Canada. But again, they have more leverage because they have these other industries to rely on if the FATF should find them or, say that we're going to put you out, they can still survive. We can't, right? Basically, that's the difference. Okay, so we see where we are with these laws, or prior to 218. So prior to last year, we had 22 deficiencies out of the 40 recommendations, right? So again, we put in the shell, and you could say, well, our government is lax, but again, it wouldn't have been good for our economy. Our banking sector would have been, we would have lost that 17% back in 2000 if they had made haste, or if they had done everything exactly the way the FATF wanted it to be. Okay? So these are our laws. Are we familiar with them? Have we ever heard of them before? Chapter 2, 3, sorry, the legal system. Anybody familiar with the Traveler's Currency Declaration Act? Okay, go ahead. What is the Traveler's Currency Declaration Act?
When you travel, allowed to carry a certain amount of money?
Okay, you're right. So the U.S. said that we allowed to carry how much? $10,000. Okay, and so a few years ago, I think this law came out in 250 and no, what happened? They didn't increase it. What happened was that was the U.S. law. Our law didn't state that you had to declare. If you was going to the U.S., you had to declare. And what happened? We had a very reputable person in the society. They was going to Jamaica. They had $200,000, and they did not declare. But for some reason, they checked 200. I would have walked with $200,000 in my hand, but they checked it through the scanner. The scanner picked it up, and then they arrested her. Took her to the police station, and then they said, well, it was politically, but it wasn't political. There was no law on the books that said you must declare. If you go into the U.S., that was the U.S. law. And so what they did, they said, yeah, we have this ATA law. What is it? ATA? No, the traveler's currency. Sorry, but that's just if you go into the U.S. So now it's amended, right? And it says now you have to declare. So they was wrong for stopping that lady. They had to buy a new ticket. They had to give her back her money, and they had to let her catch the next flight. Right? So they tried to enforce U.S. law, so they amended that to include that you must declare once you leave the Bahamas, whether you're going to Canada, Cuba, Jamaica, wherever. Because normally that on the domestic side. So really that had nothing. The police was just wrong and do not know the law all the time. Okay? Just recently, during spring break, if you was reading the newspapers and paying attention, some guys, you know the story? Tell the story. You know it?
I don't remember how much.
They won 30. Yeah. So some guys, the law just came into effect last year, or the amendment, and they went into the casino, and it was spring break. They won $30,000. They was all happy. He called his dad, and there was some Chinese men from Canada, I think, and his dad said, just split the money up and don't declare it. Just come back to, because it comes through the domestic section, and anyway they won't do you anything. Well, since our new law in effect and the police didn't get to lock up the first person, of course, they lock up these four Chinese men who have all this $30,000 that they won at the casino. How did they know? I don't know. But I imagine the police must be tipped them off, or Bahama would have tipped them off, or what have you. So anyway, they got arrested. The money got confiscated. They went before the judge. The judge charged them $1,500 and confiscated the $30,000. And so they lost everything they made. That just happened in March of this year. Okay, and so these are the type of things that you would disseminate the things that are going on in the economy, know how the laws are being put into effect. Okay? Because everybody just been looking at me like, okay, there you say this, whatever. You're paying attention?
Yes.
You're asleep or you're awake?
Yes.
Okay, good. I know the holiday ready. We holiday in a minute. As soon as we get all of this in, then we double holiday weekend. You looking at me like no holiday, double holiday. Yeah, you probably don't have those days off, but the majority of us have those days off, right? And we happy. Okay, good. Let's get through this. Okay, so who's my reader? Who else needs 10 points? Go ahead. Yeah, see, I know y'all to fight for it. Chapter 3, small chapter.
AML CFT refers to the body of laws and regulations that establish a country's national framework for addressing the crime of money laundering and terrorism financing. The laws of the Bahamas specifically concern money laundering and terrorism financing and the requirement that financial institutions know their customers are found in the following legislation: the Anti-Terrorism Act 2018, Financial Transactions Reporting Act 2018, the Financial Transactions Reporting Regulation, the Financial Transactions Reporting Wire Transfer Regulation 2018, the Wire Transfer Regulations, the Financial Intelligence Unit Act 2000 as amended. That's FICA?
FIU.
Okay, the Financial Intelligence Terrorism Reporting Regulations 2001, the Proceeds of Crime Act 2018, POPA, and the Traveler's Currency Declaration Act 2015 as amended.
Right. And so, if it's just amended, they keep the year that it came out. If it was completely repealed and replaced, then they change. That's why the anti-terrorism and the FATR, you see it in FTRA changed to 218. They initially came out in 2000, but of course they were just shells. So they had to be completely repealed and replaced. And so, you could imagine what happened in compliance in 218, right? Your Bible, there's of course central bank updated theirs. You had to go ahead and revamp your entire policy to include all the updates that you did not have in there. Now, if you had a parent company like I was at Royal, of course Canada been on top of these things for years until they just disseminate and you just localize it. But if you want in a standalone and you're doing everything from scratch, you got this, you have to start over. Okay, and so normally this expires every year. And you probably just need to, any small change, the laws don't change often. There may be a small thing, or you may have some fraud or some case that you want to put in it, but other than that, you just sign off every year that I've reviewed it and there are no updates, and but you still have to do the training every year to keep, your staff up to date. All right? Okay, good. So tell us what the laws involve.
These laws involve outlining the crime of money laundering, outlining terrorism financing, outlining which businesses are subject to AML CTF laws, creating requirements that reporting entities must follow, creating a government agency to receive suspicious matters, creating a regulator to oversee compliance, naming the law enforcement and government bodies that will have access to the reports received about suspicious matters.
Okay, so again, just remember this is just introduction, just overview. If you go on to intermediate, then you'll go into one or two of the laws. Okay, and exactly what they do, and you cite them and what have you. But just to know, this is a part of our framework. This is how they are established. That's the where do they come from, right? And we know that, right? Okay. Sure? Clear as mud? Okay, good. That's good. Okay, anybody read chapter 4? Okay.
I just have one question about chapter 4. It says the physical identity and the activity undertaken. What would be the activity? Is that where they work?
Activity undertaken is establishing the profile. What is going to happen in this account? How many deposits and how much money? Yeah, that's the activity. Yeah, like I tell you, sometimes too, even the regulators just copy right from the law. And again, that's some legal law term. And it's like, why would you put this? Like, nobody knows what that means. Yeah, so that's why I'm here, hopefully, And again, like I say, I can answer most questions. A lot of it requires research. I may have to get back to you. I'm not a knowledge, but I have some knowledge, but I don't know everything. So if I have to get research, don't be upset like, oh, you should know. No, you cannot. It's a lot. Okay? So no. Okay, so this talks about customer due diligence. Everybody familiar with that term? Okay, so would the laws require you to know your customer, and then we do customer due diligence. I see that repetitive question on the exams as a multiple choice question. It's two different things. We are required to know our customers. We're not. Then you do customer due diligence to know your customer. So they ask you, what do the law require us to do in regards to our customers? Know our clients. Then they make up some other foolishness and then they say, oh, customer due diligence. And almost every time people pick customer due diligence. So just so you all know, when you all see that multiple choice question, is to know your customer. Okay? But when we speak, we use it interchangeably sometimes. But just to know the difference. You all get me? Okay, so there's normally a question. Whether you're required to know your customer or if you're required to do customer due diligence, right? And because we use customer due diligence interchangeably with knowing the client, right? So the correct answer is to know you're required to know your client, and then you carry out customer due diligence to get to know your client, right? Just so you all know that difference. So
have to know your customer and
then carry out
due diligence.
right. And everybody familiar with due diligence? No? Okay, so we could go through this chapter and by the end of it you will tell me if you're familiar. Okay, there are statutory requirements, meaning these are requirements by law. And the question on the exam is explain 3 statutory requirements. Okay, and so for us who would have read the chapter, tell me one of the statutory requirements. Identification is one, training is the next, record keeping is the next. Look in the book. I know all of my head. I just know those 3. You have to read, yeah. So record keeping, training, monitoring, reporting the MLRO. Yeah. Okay, so they are the statutory requirements. And I have a lot of people that
You have to explain 3 things.
yeah. I mean, normally that was the question in the part, and people know about record keeping. They can explain it. They know about training. They know about identification, but they don't know what a statutory requirement is. So they sit in the exam and they freeze on that question. So no. Okay, just so you know. Okay. Okay, good. Okay, who's my reader? Who needs 10 points? I spoke. There you go.
There are 2 main constituents of a constituents of a person's identity. The physical identity, example name, date of birth, registration number, and the activity undertaken. Licenses must undertake customer due diligence measures when opening an account for or otherwise establishing a business relationship with a facility or holder. To fulfill these obligations, every license is required to verify the facility holder's identity using reliable, independent source documents, data, or information. Verify the identity of any person purporting to act on behalf of the facility holder and verify that such person is properly authorized to act in that capacity.
Okay, so we know what that means. When persons come in to open an account, we normally have internal forms, right? And on that internal form, it says, what's your name, where do you live, what's your national insurance number, what's your date of birth, and then we get a passport copy to verify, right?
Correct.
And do you know, on that same form there, that's one, we find the most deficiencies because people use, if their name is Robert, they use Rob, and we don't verify it on the passport, and so we put them in the system as Rob. There's y'all have Netflix, right? And let me tell you why that's important to not use aliases or nicknames or my name is Ralph, but they call me Mike. So I walk into the bank and I fill out this form with Mike on it. And you just assume that somebody would have put their real name, right? But people don't, and we don't check because we're so overwhelmed. And so in the end, not until something happens, we find out that we have a document with one name and something else. That happened then the year before.
Me,
Yeah.
customer came in with a business license. He was trying to open up a business account, and he doesn't like his first name. So when he filled out his application at business license, he put his middle name first and the first name second in the middle. But when you produce the ID, the passport, and the business license, it doesn't line up. So he's now going to tell me, oh, I don't like my first name. I said, mister, this can stop right here, because you will need to go back to the business license and tell them they need to correct that, because we can't do nothing further.
But you are very good that you checked, because a lot of us think, oh my God, nobody's going to get their name wrong, right?
Yeah.
Right, and so we don't even check that until something happens and we go pull the passport, oh my God, this man named Robert, but
And
just
it's
Ralph.
late.
And it's too late, right? So that's what really happens. So you find the most deficiencies on the onboarding forms. You call them account opening or onboarding forms, especially if you don't have a vetter. Because normally, you write this form up. You can't, the checker can't check the checkup. And a lot of institutions don't have the proper, processes in place where there's a preparer and a verifier. Normally you have to do prepare, verify, stamp, approve, everything. You do like 6 rows, right? But that's not good, because you will make, especially if you have heavy traffic, you will make mistakes. Okay? Let me give you another scenario. And this I was saying, do y'all have Netflix, right? There's a thing called Dirty Money. Anybody ever watch that? Okay, I want y'all to watch. If y'all have Netflix, go and watch Dirty Money. And I think it's season 1, episode 3 or 4.
Serious?
It's a series, yeah. So season 1, episode 3 or 4.
That's not a 5 point.
No, y'all. I tell you what y'all gonna do for 5 points. You have to participate in class, and then you go to networking, and then you'll sign up for the Barco and all those subscriptions, and you'll attend the free briefings, like that meeting that he said. I had a meeting with who? The industry, right, ma'am? Who read for us from the newspaper clipping? Right. We should have been at that meeting. Anybody was there? Don't miss the next one. Okay? So anyway, find out when you subscribe, it comes right to your email. You are invited to attend the industry briefing by the Attorney General's office, by Bahamas Services Board, by BACO, by what have you. Sometimes BACO has a lot of stuff, a lot of lunch and stuff, and then they put everything on the internet, but it's good to attend a vast amount of information up there, because when you have to write these policies, you will need something to leverage on or something to refer to. And if you're not attending the briefings, you writing policy from, you don't even know the ones in 2000, everything was repealed and replaced. You're still writing off 2000, right? And just as you finish, bam, all the laws change, you start over, right? But if you was attending those briefings, you would know that everything about to change. So hold off, right? Before you finalize. You can't be so busy sitting at your desk all day. So anyway, back to season 1, episode 3 or 4. And it's the one on HSBC. And what HSBC was doing was they, Mexican drug smugglers, they knew that they couldn't get accounts anywhere and they needed to move this money. And so what they did is let's say we want an account for Ben Laden. Now you know Ben Laden can't walk up in a bank and open an account nowhere in the world, right? So instead of putting Ben or Bin, whatever, however he spell it, say Ben and then Laden, they hyphenate it or put a comma or they put a dot. And our systems have a trigger system. So the minute anybody sitting to their desk and open up an account for Ben Laden, when they press enter, everything should turn red, right? But not HSB system. Once you put a dot, a hyphen, or some asterisk, some special character, they was able to defraud the system like that. So they had a few officers working together because, of course, a lot of these people who open accounts and sales, they work on commission. They don't get salaries. They just sent out there to bring in this business. And so no account opening, no money, right? And so therefore, they was opening up these accounts, and this is the big Mexican drug cartel. And so when the FIU and somebody caught up with them after they laundered thousands and millions of dollars. The attorney general, who had to give them a fine, gave them a fine of $1.9 billion. Right? Now, see, that's what everybody say. Everybody was astounded. Wow, they do a big press conference, they invite everybody, and they was dealing with them. But after you watch the movie, you will find out that they said, but HSBC is one of the biggest banks in the world, and they have locations in 40-something countries. So HSBC would make $1.9 million in 5 weeks. So how big was that fine for them? Nobody closed, no branch even closed down for that. And the lawyer that represented HSBC hired the attorney general when he retired. So watch it. So you all see it. There's a lot of different scenarios, you know. But watch that one on HSBC and you'll learn a lot, like how the world works and how the system, like everybody, even somebody did a training to my job and they used that as an example. And everybody in the room was like, oh wow, oh wow. And at that point, I didn't watch the series. Not until recently I learned, like, because I thought it was big too. And then I realized, oh, they could make that in 5 weeks. And so that was a joke. It was a slap on the wrist for them. Okay? So watch that. So this hyphen, this name, these forms that come in, you need that preparer and that better. Because most, like I said, most of the deficiencies are found there. Another deficiency is found with the proof of address. I worked in private banking. So we had people from all around the world. And so, of course, they had different houses. And, of course, they want to put the address what had the least tax, whatever, attached to it. So here it goes. They put that they from the Bahamas. They have a light bill. They get a phone and they get a BTC bill or something like that. That's what they opening up their account with. Because again, they're trying to stay below the radar because they don't really want us to report them to Italy or what have you. So you would find like if you have 3 forms where the proof of address is required, 3 different address, three different ones. Okay, so just pay attention. We take it for granted, but pay attention if you work on onboarding or if you in compliance. You will find that the source document a lot of times there's deficiencies. Another thing is that we don't get accurate or legible copies, right? We all should be scanning and keeping these stuff on a drive, right? Scan in color because when you print that out, black and white can only photocopy like twice after that the picture is distorted. And if you're working with people around the world, this one need a copy, that one need a pop, the name out, it distorted, or all sorts of stuff happen. So just little tips so you have legal files. With the address, I had a situation where somebody had applied for Bahamian residency, and Canadians, he wanted to trade, but he was not allowed as a Canadian to trade in some stock or something to that effect. So there is a form that you fill out, a tax form called a W-8 form. If you're non-American, you fill out a W-8. If you're American, you fill out a W-9. So he filled out the W-8 to say, it must be for Canada too because he was Canadian or he had some US. So he put that he was Bahamian, right? Went and did some fraud transaction in the same stock. And when we pull out his forms, we see that, he's Bahamian. We won't be in any trouble. Come to find out, he put that he was Bahamian, but we never got his work permit. We never got a residency certificate. We never got anything. We just let him put that he was Bahamian. And so there it is. He do some fraud. And so they calling us and they say, send this entire file, the FIU. And when we send this file, they said, but this form says he's Canadian, Bahamian. What proof do you have? We said, we don't have any proof. We took his word for it.
Everybody,
So we go to the salesperson. We say, call this man on the phone right now and say, send the residency card. He said, yeah, I applied for it. I was denied. I didn't have a chance to let you know. So we got like a $20,000 fine for colluding. Yeah. So this is why these things are important. It is a lot. There's a lot of checking. There's a lot of verifying. But if you want to stay out of jail, you know what I mean? And these people do lie, and they know they bank on our ignorance, they bank on our ability of being overwhelmed and overworked and short staffed to bypass the system. Okay, so be very careful. All right, let's continue.
To verify the identity of a natural person, the below should be followed. In addition, licenses must be adhered to the streamlined requirements for account opening. Provision of financial services and customer identification for natural persons. A license must be obtained and document full of correct names used, two or more means of contacting the customer, date and place of birth, purpose of the account, and the nature of the business relationship.
Okay, so the Bahamas wanted to do ease of doing business, and so this is a problem that we have. I mean, no, we support the ease of doing business, but if you look, it says must. These things must be obtained, and they just relaxed it. They removed the proof of address, and they put two forms of contact. Yeah. So what is a form of contact now? Email, telephone. Yeah, but people don't really use PO box no more. But I mean, yeah, once you have two forms, right? And so these are the things that are must. When we go on to the bottom, you'll see these are the things that you may have, right? And despite what the regulation says or what the guideline says, because all of this is taken, you'll find all of this right in the central bank guideline. Your institution can enforce or put any policy into effect. Again, this is just a guideline. If you work for a Canadian institution, you'll find that Canadians are more stringent. When the stock market crashed, they were the only people who survived, right? The Canadians, because they are more strict, they are more conservative. So just like the guideline would say one piece of ID, the Canadians say, no, let's make room for error, human error. We'll get two forms because we know somebody can serve their cousin and say, cousin, bring it back, and cousin ain't gonna never come, right? So the Canadians always ask for more. If you work for a Swiss institution, again, this just stopping them from making money. They don't have time for this. They could turn this procedure upside down, and they bring it to you, and compliance has to deal with it because remember now you represent the entire institution. If we're good for one, good for all. So they will come and say the guideline says you may get the nationality. Why do I have to get the nationality? Why do I have to know? Why I need to know where this person from or where they were born?
To tax the avoid tax evasion.
Yeah, well, for the first part, yeah, tax evasion. A lot of people was lying about the country. The CM incident, but I said he wanted to invest in the market. He wasn't allowed to because he was Canadian. He lied and said he was Bahamian, and we didn't get proof, right? What about I born in Afghanistan, but I left when I was 5. I leave when I was 5. I ain't even been to school there. But I ain't even been to school there.
That's okay.
You
affiliated with them because you.
And what do foreigners come here to do? When they come here, they live, they make their money, and where they send it. So I lived there when I was 5, but my mommy and my daddy still there, or my sister still there. So do you not need to know if this person is from Afghanistan or relate? You know what I mean? Have any relation? That will determine if that person is high or low or what have you, right? When you risk rate them, okay? But the salespeople who know this person from Afghanistan and really only want to make this money and know that I can flip over and say, oh, no way, we opening up this account because this money for his parents. You know what I mean? They can sit there and say, I think you're overdoing it, and you have to realize now that you work for a Swiss institution and you're no longer at the Royal Bank of Canada. They reporting me to the CEO now, okay? Because this guideline, they bringing it, and don't you call this your Bible? You're going to go against the Bible? This says may get the nationality. It doesn't say must. So that's the type of problems you will encounter. And we, when these guidelines came out, of course, we went to the industry briefings because they do a white paper and they say this is the guideline. Let us know what issues you have or give us suggestions or feedback. Please, by all means, to make your life easier, read the white paper before it comes out, as we wrote letters upon letters upon letters, because those salespeople wrote those letters as well, saying it's too stringent, we can't make any money, you need to ease, we need the ease of doing business. I was writing and say, please change this to must. Because I had an incident where the person was indeed born in Afghanistan and they refused to ask the nationality and provide me with proof. Because they know. Because they say you're right. So Royal Bank didn't play. Royal Bank said no, we govern all grounds. Everything says must, right? So our internal policy said, don't worry with the guy. If the regulators say may, that's their business. We say must, you must get that nationality. You must do this and you must do that. The Swiss bank, oh no, they say me. Don't put that on the form. They write me letters. Please take the requirement for nationality off the form. Please do not stop nationality from opening up these accounts. Okay, so when you come to that, just know the difference would may cause you a problem. Okay, because everybody, like I say, sales people, a lot of them are on commission. And even if they're getting a pay, they're looking at that big 20, 30,000 bonus that you stopping them from getting because of all of this regulation, all this policy, all this procedure. Right? So know what company you work for, and so just know their mindset. And now you work the Canadian banks, more conservative. You work the Swiss banks and maybe U.S. banks. They constantly trying to find a way to. I don't want to say beat the system. There, they don't believe in these laws. These laws just expensive. They cost too much money. You just hampering them making money, and so they fight you along the way. So it's very difficult. Okay, just so you know. You get your full 10 points. They don't worry with the rest of them.
The following information may also be obtained and documented: nationality, occupation of the name of employer, it's self-employed, the nature of the self-employment, estimate level of account activity including size in the case of investment and custody accounts, balance ranges in the case of current and deposit accounts, and indication of the expected transactions volume of the account.
Okay, and that right there, that's the activity undertaken. And we all familiar with that, the ranges, the amount of deposits, and that's how you establish a profile. And that was the question, everybody would know what ICA is, right? That was one of the, remember I said when you go to ICA, 18 months in total, AML, 9 months, and GRC, governance risk and compliance, 9 months. You write 3 papers. One of the papers was explain to us an unusual transaction and how it is established. A lot of people didn't know. How do you put that in 2,500 words? This is how it's established right here from the activity that's going to happen on the account. So when the person comes in, they create a profile. They select and they tell you, I'm going to deposit up to $10,000 monthly. I'm going to do this in 9 to 10 transactions or 20, or I'm an operating account. I pay salaries. Okay? There was a big thing that came out this year. Everybody familiar with Edison Sumner, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. He's a pastor. He was the vice president of the Chamber of Commerce. Very well known, right? There's something called ring fencing. Let's say they own a company similar to CFAL. Everybody know what CFAL is? Kalina Financial Advisors. And so here it is. They establish their profile. These people want to invest in cryptocurrency. So all the money that I deposit into, say, a Scotia Bank, into this account is for investors of cryptocurrency. I expect to have 50 investors. I expect this account to go up to $100,000 a month, right? That's the profile they created. And then they send a wire transfer in for Rolex watch. They send in a wire transfer to go to the regatta. They send in a wire transfer for limousine service. But are we watching it? You sure?
No, they're not.
I had 800 clients.
There's too much.
Mm-hmm.
No, but so you have to have your clients segregated. You first of all you risk rate them high, medium, or low. Your junior people take the medium and the low. Your senior people take the high. Operational accounts or operating accounts means that I pay salaries, I buy inventory, I have like 10 to 20 wires a day. So the senior people deal with those type of accounts and they shouldn't have more than 50. Each relationship manager should have, this is on the, this is on the, no, this is on the private banking side. Yeah, and retail branch is a lot different. But these clients are risk rated, which means every year I review their account and I update their file. Remember we talked about Brave Davis' daughter getting married. I mean, yeah.
like
So
a pet
now
too.
the boy that she married, the
son-in-law.
guy is now a pet. How do you know that? So at review time, if he was low, you ask these questions. You also go through the history of the account for the last year, and you see, okay, this is a C-file account to buy blockchain or invest in cryptocurrency. Why did something go out to John Burke? Why was there limousine service? Why was, you know what I mean? Regatta tickets bought. Okay, and so they call that ring fencing. Okay, you have to ensure that the purpose of the account is adhered to. And it's very difficult because, like I say, it depends. On the retail side, you probably have 200 or 300 accounts. I think when we was at Royal, we had like 15,000 clients, you know, and then each officer had a certain amount. But that's why it's good to separate sales from admin so somebody could watch all these things. Because the government is now more stringent, the regulators checking all these things to make sure you have adequate staff to check to make sure that these things aren't happening. Because that person, you know, receiving those transactions didn't realize that this was coming out of the C-file account. Didn't realize that they just buy tickets to Boo for with the people's money. You know what I mean? So all of these things you have to check. And all of these things is when they establish a profile. And you have the right to call them up on the phone and say, listen, I cannot purchase this Rolex watch from this account. But that's why Edison Sumner got charged. He got banned for 10 years, and his CEO got banned for life. They had a broker dealer firm. They got banned for life for buying things out of the people's money that outside of the purpose of the account. So what you think happened to the bank that held that account? You think they didn't get a fine?
They got fined too.
They got a fine as well. Yes, yes. So the bank was the gatekeeper. They were supposed to stop it. They were supposed to send some information to the FIU. They wasn't supposed to wait until there was default or people couldn't collect their money or something went wrong. I don't know at what point how it came to light, but that's exactly what happened. So now he's banned. Okay, so if you're an account officer, please make sure that people stay within the required profile. Right? And so again, that's how you establish an unusual transaction. At an onboarding, we open an account, we said this was the purpose, and now we're going outside of the purpose. I say I sell peanuts, I only make $5, and now I deposited 50,000 or 5,000. Right? Now the transaction becomes unusual. Right? And the other day somebody asked me that somebody deposited $5,000 in US. Any amount, you know, central bank says you can't deposit more than 15,000 cash, but your policy should say any amount. You know, it's no number. Any amount. If you know, like, it's a peanut boy, and he shouldn't have $50 because he only has deposit 5. That's unusual. Right? So, enter. It depends on your policy. Okay, so we understand activity. We all have accounts. We all went to the bank, and we know how the profile is created. Right? Okay, good. So now, under May, you may ask for source of funds. How is that possible?
Question. What if, like how I have an account now, and when I went to create the profile, I didn't tick to write a, or I decided that, hey, the bank really charging me a lot to deposit my funds. But now I am in the process of trying to get a home or, to get funds to have funds there for collateral or whatever they call it to be able to acquire a home. And I was saving money underneath my mattress and I put it on the bank one time.
You can't do that.
You have to update. First of all, you could go and say, I was working to lickety split, now I'm a prison officer, so my salary has increased. Yeah, bank should be calling you if it's outside the norm. Somebody should be updating your account. Now, I don't know how often they do it at the retail side, but I know they were very lax on the private banking side, and they only when audit was coming, you had to sit on those officers.
You can't accept that type of money unless you have legitimate reason.
Right. Yeah, so I had it under my mattress story. All those stories these laws been in effect in the world from 2000. So if it's nowhere in the world you can go and do that, you have to bring proof.
So if I take it out like the credit union and I bring a letter, that'll be fine.
Yeah, your receipt from the credit union is fine once you have source documents. Yeah. But do you all see that the guideline says you may ask for source of funds? Not required. Not a must.
No, it's not.
No, where must be reading the law?
They have a mandatory
Institution.
My institution, yeah.
Right. And if any institution has sense, they will make it mandatory. But I am telling you, these are some of the problems where I worked in the Swiss bank that we had.
It could be optional.
So
It could be.
Wow. But you have to keep your eyes open because I had a customer who wanted a drop. He had like a big sum of money and it's like, oh, can I purchase a drop? I still need to know where this money coming from. You put it on your account, but now you're trying to get a instrument as a drop, from the bank. So it's tricky.
Yeah. Of course, I mean, they have to check us out. Like I say, you can only mitigate risk. You can't eliminate it. But you have to have your controls in place. So when it is found out, when these fraudsters are caught, or these tricky people are put to stop, you have to be able to say, I did A, B, and C. This is my control. But when you come and you say, oh, I didn't realize he didn't name Robert. He just write Ralph there. You know what? I didn't check that. Oh, he did deposit $10,000. I have 800 clients. How I can check all of them? Somebody even says an auditor, know your customer. How? Jesus, 800 clients. How are I supposed to know them? That's what people say. And so what you think happens to these people?
Bye.
Okay. So you're required to know. You're required to check. Don't take these positions and not read your mandate. Know it in detail what you're required to do and how you should do it. Ask for training and ask for help. Because they've expanded the law. Because the previous law said the MLRO will go to jail. Everybody goes to jail. And remember I said, so many presidents have been impeached in the Caribbean. Brazil president been to jail 3 times. The governor of the central bank. I don't know how much loan officers and different officers been to jail. Okay? Please. Yeah, I know we are all law-abiding citizens, but internationally we are now being watched because we are so law-abiding and nobody has been charged with money laundering, everybody with fraud. So now we have somebody before the courts being charged with money laundering, right? Directly person, for the first time ever. Right? And they already have all kind of implications with that case. They initially charged 6 people, and this is the case which you all need to pay attention to. They charged 6 persons, and then some, I don't know if it's their lawyers or somebody said at the time the law wasn't in place properly too. So they released 6 of them and now only 1 person. And so now, I don't know if it's I guess it's Attorney General office now fighting to say, even though the law wasn't in place, internationally, the 40 recommendations were out. It should have been, we put it in a shell way, or, so the seal could win on a technicality. So these people should be charged. So it's up in arms now on whether the court is going to pick these persons back up or not. So that's a good case to pay attention to. But like I say, internationally, we're being watched. And don't be surprised with the outcome of, we had 4 or 3 persons, all politicians for the first time ever, hauled before the courts. I sure everybody just wasn't law abiding before this happened, right? And we already cleared 1, right? And 2 more are still out on bail. And like I said, internationally, we are going to be watched and be deemed to be non-compliant if everybody just gets let go free. And of course, the big boys can't go to jail, so I think it'll be on us. Some newbie, some newbie will get a new big position, because even on that same serious dirty money, HSBC was required to immediately hire a compliance officer, and that they're going to interview the compliance officer, and he's going to say, "Oh, I never worked in compliance before, but they gave me an office, and they told me just to do this work and just to sign off on these things." And then I realized that I didn't know what I was doing, and they wasn't even serious about rectifying the problem, because they hired somebody again who was not competent to complete that job. Okay, and so that's what they do. So make sure, and only because he was so honest and was taken advantage of, he did not get charged, but he was on the way to jail too. Not even knowing, just because he got a big office, a car, a phone, and everything to make you feel good. Office for review now, we sign in everything. Approved, open this, hyphenate every name, turn off the triggers, right? I can do it, right? Okay, good. Okay. Let's continue. Second signature.
Wait.
Okay, source of funds. Go to source.
Oh, yeah. Source of funds, a specimen signature, telephone and fax number, if any, and a copy of one or more of the identification documents set out in CBB AML CFT guidelines. A license should also confirm the customer's source of wealth where the client is considered high risk.
And so do we understand the difference between source of wealth and source of funds?
Source of wealth. They have any assets?
Inherited.
No, so source of wealth would be like your job, I get rent, or what have you. And a lot of time, I don't think that we require like a job letter. The credit unions now do it. You can't just go into a credit union and open up an account. They ask you for a job letter, which is salary, which is surprising. And they just started that. I think Central Bank became their regulator last year, or the year before they was regulated by some body or something like that. So now they are the Central Bank, and so you at the credit union. Yeah. So now you need a job letter, right?
We always had job letter.
Really?
Yeah.
To open up a savings account?
Yes.
Wow, that's crazy. But I was very offended. But anyway, okay. And it was enforced?
Yes, ma'am. Even before we never had the central bank.
Oh, wow. Okay. So good. Yeah, so you need a job letter. Now, a Royal Bank or a Scotia ain't asking you for a job letter. So, or Fidelity or Commonwealth, any other, no?
We don't ask them about.
No. But anyway, we're talking about the difference between source of wealth and source of funds. A source of wealth, you have to bring proof. Like, you have to say, I inherited this.
So it's just like a revenue. So
Yeah, financial, so your company, or my daddy left this to me in his will. Like Brent Simonette said, I had $56 million before, and I have $156 million. And they said, where did this money come from, Brent? And he said,
56, and now you have
56. Yeah, he said, my mother passed away, and she left me $100 million. Why y'all mad? Make sure you all have this $100 million. So I imagine wherever he opened up an account, he had to bring a copy of that bill. Okay? And everybody was mad. No, she didn't thief that, Devo. She did that for a child. Make sure you can do it to see him. Don't be mad.
Yeah.
Okay? So you bring that inheritance, you bring that will, you bring that real estate that you sold. Right? Or you bring the financials to your company and to show where you would have made this money. Okay? No job letter. I don't know who you work for if you have a job letter. Where you know what I mean? And then that is a part when we do simplified due diligence, and we do simplified on low and medium, and then we do enhanced due diligence. And that's another thing that people don't know how to explain. Enhanced due diligence. Anybody know what that is? Okay. So we understand that when you come into the bank and after you fill out all these forms, you are risk rated, right? All these categories, we put it into a system and we say risk rate this person. Let us know if they're high risk, low risk, or medium risk, right? And if you are high risk, you are subject to enhanced due diligence. So company by company, they do different things. What Royal Bank did was we had a company in Canada that would go into your country. Let's say you was from Venezuela, and they would write a report on you from Venezuela, like that. So we paid like $1,500 for this report on you to open up an account. This was trust now in private banking, not the retail side, right? So that was a part of our enhanced due diligence. When you open an account, there's something called World Check. Everybody familiar with World Check? We put your name into a system and it tells us if you have any criminal activity or what have you. That's what we did for our low and medium. For high risk, we also Google search you. We Google search your wife and all your children, and we place all of that on the file. Let's just say we did something extra to mitigate the risk, to make sure you wasn't the son of a politician or what have you. All PEPs, everybody knows what a PEP is, politically exposed persons, are high risk. So we would have to do all of that on them. Get the Canadian firm to go into whatever country and dig up, see if they own any companies, see who they related to, see what type of investments they do in, and give us a detailed background search. We Google search, and then we put them as high risk, and that means they are monitored every year. And so, at another control that you can put in place is that the compliance officer can approve all medium and low, and the board, or there's normally an AML committee. The committee has to approve all high risk, right? So you go with all this in-depth information and you do a full overview. This is who this person is. This is where they work. This is where they live for so many years. This is what they, invested. And then the board will make a decision. So all of this is a part of enhanced due diligence. What controls do you put in place? Or what do you do differently for your high risk? And then again, of course, we normally say relationships managers could complete the review again, where you check to make sure everything is up to date, the passport isn't expired, the proof of address. You have two forms of contact. You actually contact the client, right, to verify. You do those updates.
Do you contact only for high risk, or you contact?
No, you contact for all in doing your review process. Once every 2 years if you're medium, once every 3 years if you're low. But if you're high, compliance now has to now sign off on that. So that's the next control that we put in place. So y'all see the difference between simplified versus enhanced, and that's normally a question on the exam as well. Explain what happens in simplified. What's the difference for enhanced? What do you do? And like I say, in various institution by institution, but there has to be some control in place. We let our board, our AML compliance committee approve. We go and get a background check from an outside vendor to go into their country. We ask for source of wealth, not only source of funds, and compliance signs off on the review. So you know that compliance has to make sure that you actually did that review, because a lot of times people just fill out the review paper and send it in, but no compliance is going to check. So the same time that the relationship manager checking the account to make sure that nobody buy no Rolex, you have to go right behind them and make sure no Rolexes is bought too before you sign off on that review. Right? So they are the controls that you put in place.
So the simplify is just verifying.
Yeah, doing the norm.
Contacts.
Yeah, getting all the information, verifying that is correct, and then risk rating, medium or low. Enhanced, Yeah, and I think we'll go further even to talk about exempted. Like anybody who is a regulated entity is exempted from bringing in any of this. because their regulator has, in order for them to open up the bank or the number house or what have you, they had to go through their regulator. So for banks, it would have been through the central bank, right? And so central bank says, oh, I know all the principals, I know all the owners who could sign on this account. So therefore, you don't have to ask them for passport, NIBs, proof of address. They are exempt. You can just get their signature card, verify who they are, and open up the account. For instance, I was at Royal and Scotia had an account with us. So we didn't have to ask the Scotiabank executives for passport, NIB, and all of these different things because they are exempted because they are a regulated entity. Island Luck would be exempted because they are regulated by the gaming board. But of course, I worked at Royal Bank. And what Royal Bank said, oh, we don't accept exempted clients. Right? And so therefore, I was Royal Bank Trust, a part of the Royal Bank Group. We had an account with Royal Bank Retail. And when my passport expired, they blocked the account. If something changed, they blocked the account. And we worked for Royal Bank. So we wasn't outside. So of course, you know, the Scotias and all that, they had to bring everything just like everybody else. Memo and ask, yeah, good standing, expire. Get your new good standing or we block your account. I said, but I'm a part of Royal Bank. I work here. Okay? We don't accept exempted accounts. Okay? But I worked at a Swiss bank. And let's say Scotia Bank come in there and open up an account with the Swiss bank. Oh yeah, sure, don't bring anything.
Wow.
We only need your signatory list. Where they didn't ask for anything, they didn't even get the signatory list. The people start sending in wires, we didn't know who should approve what. Where they say this account is Scotia Bank's account, it's exempted. They don't need to bring in anything. So regulated entities, and they give a list, and I think we'll cover it in here, or it's in the central bank guidelines on as who is exempted. But again, it depends on your internal policy. Right? Okay, so I have 2 questions.
Okay, with the profile, say for example, I had an account at Commonwealth before, and I went there to open up a new account because my old account terminated. They were able to pull up my name, and they used my old passport as identification. I feel as if that shouldn't happen.
Why did the passport expire?
Because I have a new passport now.
So that means it expired.
It didn't expire. No, what had happened was I lost my passport. And you know how they have this new passport, e-passport now. So why would you use?
Because the passport didn't expire.
Yeah.
That's the only way they would use it. They were trying to be helpful. Normally, if you have an account, you shouldn't have to bring your ID every single time. I used to work at Royal Bank, and I had an account at Prince Charles, and I had one at main branch. And every time I still had to travel with my ID, they had my signature in the system. And if you wanted to open a new account, they make you bring everything. But Commonwealth Bank was trying to extend customer service to you. And they said this passport isn't expired. Now you would have to tell them it was stolen though. And I have a new one.
But I understand that. But suppose someone else did.
They didn't know.
I understand that. But suppose like someone to take my old passport
and do fraud.
That's what I'm saying.
Again, they didn't know. They don't know. You have to call the banks, and when something happened, you have to say my passport, my IDs were stolen. Freeze my account until I come in. See, they don't know.
You gave them an ID in order for them to give you information? No, you just said your name?
No, she went in and they went in the system and they pulled up her passport, so they could have verified it was her.
The same person.
Yeah, they look at her and they look at the picture.
Yeah, that's you. So they didn't do anything wrong because they didn't know it was stolen, and then like she said, when they look at the picture, it was you.
Yeah.
Right?
Some of them just
No, it didn't expire and it looked like you. They didn't do nothing wrong. They do nothing wrong. Now, when you say my passport is expired, then the person probably going to have a second look to make sure it was you. But okay, now present. Now that we know, and that's why you have the bank won't know unless you contact them. You know, and these things just happen every day.
What's your name? Let me call from my bank.
And let them know. Don't give you customer service no more. Make you bring it every time. Okay, good. Okay, so You got a question? No? Good? Okay, good. So we get that? No? Come on, talk to me.
Yeah, we get it.
Yeah.
On the
Don't just
difference
say
between
yeah.
simplifying and enhancing diligence.
Exempted, yeah. Source of funds and source of wealth.
Yes, source of wealth is salaries. Source of funds would be where the funds coming from.
Okay, we getting this because people still looking at me blind. We good? Sure? Okay, good. All right, let's continue.
Licenses must be maintained at least two or more current means of contacting each customer who is a natural person. Licenses should verify one or more points of contact. This is consistent with the FTRR, which requires that financial institutions obtain contact information when verifying their customers' identity. Regulations for 1B. That's how I say it, right?
Yeah, regulation, yeah. So you should be able to go to the FDR regulation 4.1B and see where that requirement is.
That inside the Bible,
No, in the actual law. Yeah, they ain't gonna quote the Bible. They say as per central bank guidelines, but they normally quote the law itself. Yeah.
Okay. Licenses must be obtained independent verification of the residential address or the business address of customers resident in countries where such verification is reasonably achievable. As a rule of thumb, verification is reasonably achievable in every country offering regular delivery of mail to individual homes and businesses.
That's true?
Sorry. What does that mean again? Does that mean that you don't have to verify an address? Is that what that's saying? Or that's the opposite of what it's saying?
It says reasonably achievable, and then they say as a rule of thumb, all countries it should be. Yeah, but of course you will have people fight you on that, right? So it's really up to your policy and how stringent it is.
Policy
It's your
based
internal
on that.
decides if we can still ask for proof of address or not. It depends. Of course, the Canadian banks are gonna do it. So let's think about. I live in Inagua. What's my address in Inagua? General delivery. Okay. So back in the day, we were tasked with how do we find, what do we put in for these people from the islands, right? Because all of them have, delivery. General delivery. They didn't even have street names back in the day. So now, at least they still don't have street names. Down in Meguana and Inagua, they no street names. It's just general delivery. So let me tell you what happened. And this was what, and so for years, when regulators came in, they were like, we'll find a way because you have to get something or you have to write down they say Cable Bahamas is even write down the direction, but I said, but they need to find the house. That's why they write it down. So they started off by writing down the direction to the house. And then, I don't know if you all remember, a few years back, there was 700 Royal Bank repossessions. This was like 700 homes. And a lot of them was from the island. And guess what? The collections department could not find any of those houses. And the let's say the manager had already left, because normally the branch manager been there for 3 or 5 years or what have you. And when you go on an island, nobody telling no collections agency where you live. They don't rat you out like that. So
everyone know one another.
There you go. Nobody said now you come to give a loan or no, I come to repossess. Oh no, I don't know where someone lives. And so that was happening. And so across the board, they said you'll have to come up with a solution. And so what happened with Royal Bank put into effect, and Scotia as well, on a Saturday, the manager of the bank had to go out to these various houses and find out where these people live. So when you came in, we got the description, and then we had to go out and verify and write an attestation and sign it that this is Sue whoever, Sue Rule, live on this street or whatever, and that's how they curbed that problem. They were able to satisfy the regulators, and they were able to find the people houses when it was time to repossess.
So general delivery is
No, it shouldn't be
shouldn't
accepted.
be acceptable.
No. How you find the people?
No, because we have a lot of them.
Yeah, but that's why I said it across from. I was there when they implemented all these laws, and
It depends on
they use us.
institution too, right?
They use us as the pilot branch, and we did everything wrong. The central bank came in and said, "Slam us." We then give you all extension after. This was back in 2000. We give you all extension after extension after extension, and you're still do it wrong. Do it again, or you'll have a fine. And because we didn't believe like when they say create a file for everybody and you must have the passport. So we got some people's passport and we put all the A's together, all the B's together, all the C's together. They come and they say, nope, everybody must have an individual file. It was crazy. And then this whole general delivery thing, that was crazy. So finally, 10 years later, we got it sorted out. And so now that's what the requirement is. I get the loan officer or the manager goes out and signs. And now you can find these people out. So
You only send it from a loan perspective. When
Yeah.
you just depositor.
yeah, but no, but that's what if you go into Royal Bank or Scotia, that's what they'll ask you to do. I don't know. CIBC is Canadian as well. I don't know if it's required. What anybody know?
PO box.
You have to have a PO. So I come from Long Island with PO box. I have.
You need to use someone else's one.
Well, I just use a PO. People don't even use this mail system
I
no
don't
more
even
now.
need you to open an account.
And so now you see why it's two forms of contact, and now you see why the exception is there. And so they say on these one-off cases, we'll make an exception because this person lives Long Island. And the mailing system, nobody is using a PO box. So we get the two forms of contact, and or we get the description. Tell me how to get the out. I guess I gave a Bahamas did, right? That's what we do. There's a workaround, but they wasn't accepting that. We had to come up. They say, "Oh, y'all are the private sector. Y'all have to highly train, and you're making all this money. Y'all figure it out what it has to be done, But didn't really tell us what to do. So over the years, that's what we came up with. So y'all probably there. The credit unions.
No, what we do is we also get address. We used to do the verification until 2018 May,
Mhm.
where you confirm or provide like a voter's card to say that this is your location.
Okay.
But we moved away from that, and we still continue to just have the individual give me from a main direct
Direction to
location
your house.
to where your house
Yeah.
is.
Okay. Good. And y'all doing loans?
Yes.
Yeah,
we do
because
that for
trust me,
Montana.
you would see that nobody know where these people live. Yeah. Okay, good. So we get that. Okay.
Where this is not the case or where mail delivery is sporadic, licenses may be
Licensees
may rely on more immediate and reliable points of contact. This provides a more efficient and predictable means of managing the risk of fraud, money laundering, and other identification risks.
Yeah, and so back in the day we had whole mail. Do y'all still offer whole mail? No, we had to stop because a lot of that whole mail. We had international clients. We had international clients, and in Italy, they believe in spies, and they really suspicious. I mean, I don't know. I never live in Italy, but they really feel like the government is going to your mail and read it, and they will kill you if you evade taxes and stuff. If you talk to Swiss people, you see how I don't know. I never lived there, so I don't know. So they really afraid. You can't even call some Swiss clients on the phone. They'll be like, no, like it's yeah, everything tapped and the government watching everything. And so they would pay us $1,500 a year just to hold their mail, not to send it out in the mail. And so that's what whole mail is. And so we would keep it and we would let them sign a contract and say we can debit your account $1,500 a year, and we can shred your mail if you don't pick it up in 3 years. And a lot of time they didn't pick it up. But now everything is online and generic. So a lot of people, but it's a good money making thing. Some banks still say, oh no, your mail must be sent or you pay that $1,500. And all of those accounts we mark as high risk because, they're not getting mail. There's no guarantee this is where they live. It could be just a generic bill or whatever they made up. But like there's no more evading taxes, so a lot of people don't do these things anymore. So that's all. Okay. Certification of documents. Who can certify? Everybody now, right? Even teachers? Let's see.
Certification of identification documents. Where certified copy documents are accepted, it is the SFI's responsibility to satisfy itself that the certifier is appropriate.
So all us work in retail for the most part, so we wondering why the people's coming with their originals, right? We see the client, right? Right? That's what happening for the most part. But anybody who works in offshore knows that these clients, we never even meet them. We normally are introduced to them through external asset managers or business introducers. And so we get a copy, a certified copy of their IDs. Okay, and so that's what that's for. If you ever have to get
Like a JP?
yeah, so their JP in their country would certify it and confirm that this is a legitimate copy. In some countries, they have like a black market and a high crime rate and high rate of people who do counterfeiting. So we used to do business with Russia. So we, of course, were not comfortable with taking a certified, like, you would did create just a form because to certify a JP would have a number or yeah, and a stamp and all of that. And so a lot of times people are sending us things in Russian, different languages or whatever. So that's another thing that you need to look out for because a lot of people just accept documents and then even in or everything it must be in English, right? So there's something called the Hague Convention, and you get your documents apostille. And so there's a list of countries that are part of the Hague Convention. And what that means is we sign up in this convention. The convention will take responsibility for any illegal documentation. And so what the person in Russia would have to do is go to their Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Their minister would apostille the document, and then we would accept it as a true and correct copy. Again, because remember, we never met these people. Okay, so that's one step on certifying. If you have customers from the UAE, where Dubai and what have you is, the laws in Dubai say our courts are the only people allowed that they had millions and millions of dollars of worth of fraud, right? And they said our courts are the only people that are allowed to certify documents. Think about it. This customer have $10 million. They're in Dubai. He ready to open up this account. The courts have to certify it, and their court system appears to be just like ours. It takes 3 months for that to happen. And if I don't know if you'll ever work with the ultra mega rich, they want this account open today because they have transactions to go through and they on your case, and that salesperson needs their commission, right? So you have to make sure that you. I mean, I don't know. Central bank allows you 30 days to get everything in place, but of course, we always go over. But you have to make sure that you get those documents, and a lot of people just don't even know it. A lot of people, the other day, we had a problem with, helped us to find out that we was accepting documents that were being certified. And when we got to the courts in Dubai, they was like, could you send us a copy of those documents? Because they wanted to go and pick up those people and arrest them because it's no longer allowed. Only the courts can do it. So if you are found to have documents certified out of Dubai, you in now collusion. If any fraud or anything happen, they don't even look at you because they say you should know you if you're working with these customers, you should know what the laws of the country are. Okay, and so now you see why you get paid so much more in the offshore world and private banking and trust because it requires a whole lot more. And like we didn't even know it only because there was some fraud. We found out that the courts would have to certify. So it depends on the country, but for the most part, countries that you're familiar with, like we always get people from the USA, we always get people from Italy. But when we start getting Russians and people from Venezuela and Iran, we go through the apostille. Same way here, when we do business with some people or institutions, they say, no, take it to your Ministry of Foreign Affairs, let them apostille it and send it to us. And that costs like $80, $90. Okay, just so you know.
Oh.
No, you don't get your 10 points. Who else needs 10
Man,
points?
I didn't get my
Oh,
10 points.
okay, keep going. Sorry, I was giving somebody else a chance. Go ahead. I didn't want to overwhelm you. Go ahead. Very good.
Let me finish this. Where it is impractical or impossible to obtain signed or original documents, a copy is acceptable where it has been certified by a suitable certifier as being a true copy of the original document and that the photo is a true likeness of the facility holder. A certifier must be a suitable person, certified public accountant, bank or trust company official, consul and attorney at law, senior civil servant, doctor or medicine, justice of the peace, member of the House of Assembly, minister of religion, notaries public, police officer, teacher, or corporate security. Secretary.
So they expanded now for so many people to sign, but again, it depends on your institution. Some institutions just stick with the bank official and the priest or whatever. I don't think they go to teachers and doctors, but it's allowed. This out of the central bank guidelines here, so it's allowed. Okay.
So this diagram was there when you could explain that to you?
It's just saying that what goes along with compliance. Yeah, so rules, compliance is made up of rules, policies, anti-money laundering, know your customer, and countering the risk financing, countering terrorist financing or financing of terrorism, however you put it.
Corporate clients. To verify the identity of a corporate client, the following must be obtained: the original or a certified copy of the certificate of incorporation or equivalent document, certified copy of the memorandum and articles of association, name and location of the registered office and registered agent of the corporate entity, where appropriate, or if different, location of principal place business. Description and nature of the corporate entity business include date of commencement of business, products or service provided, and location of principal business. A copy of the board resolution authorizing the opening of the account or other facility and the signatories authorized to sign the account.
So let me tell you what happened. At an institution where I worked, we had a company account. At least we thought we had a company account. The messenger had opened the account. And so one day he picked up all of the incorporation documents, which is the memo and asked the good standing on all of this, came into the bank. He opened up the account. At that time, they didn't enforce the board resolution, and this is why they're putting it in now. I'm not certain if they had it in 2 or 3 years ago, but this was updated like 2009, and then they had a lapse for a few years. So probably perhaps in one of those years where the board resolution wasn't required. So he opened up the account because he had the corporate documents. Put his name as the signatory to sign on the account, and every check that he picked up, he deposited to that account, went to the ATM and withdrew. And so that's why they
Put away?
I don't even know if he went to jail because back in those days,
back in that days, it wasn't.
the bank didn't want their name to be out in the media in a negative light, and so they didn't want you to know that the staff was thieving. So a lot of staff got off free. I mean, I see the other day a lot of RBC employees hauled before the court. So back in my day, they didn't want the negative media. They call it reputational risk. It was more costly for the customers to come in and do a bank run to say, "Oh, these people ain't doing what they supposed to do. They was defrauded, or their employees is thief a lot." Yeah, so they used to hide and sweep it under the rug. But it happens so much now that they You know, they prosecuting people, but that's what he did. So this board resolution is important because it should be on the company's letterhead. It should have the company's seal, and it should say these are the people who are authorized to sign on
the check.
Yeah, for the, you can see one of them big paper companies had checks and checks and checks, and so here it is, the finance department calling saying, "Your invoice was net 15 days. It's been 60 days and you only ain't pay." And the people was able to produce. I pay from 2 months ago, which means I have a bill with you all.
But the
You know,
document would have stated the person's signatory.
him, he was the signatory.
No, I mean the document.
What
With
you
the
mean?
whoever received it in order to open it.
He received it. He
That's
picked it
why
up.
he
He's the
couldn't do
messenger.
it. He's the messenger.
He pick, you know, you pick up this check, you pick up the incorporate, go to the business license place and pick up the incorporation documents. They didn't send him to the bank to open up an account. He went with it to the bank to open up an account. But the resolution wasn't required at that time. And so it didn't say who the principals, the resolutions say, we are the principals of this account or the chair people or we are the board. We authorize Ms. Bullard to act on our behalf for BTC.
Why would the messenger have access to the system?
Hmm?
Why would the messenger have access to the system?
What do you mean?
He's the messenger.
What do you
Wouldn't
mean?
there be a segregation of duty or for
Access to which
messenger?
system?
You said he was able to open the account.
He went to
someone-
Royal Bank and he opened up an account.
To open the
Royal
account.
Bank did not know he was the messenger.
No.
He didn't fill out that he was the messenger on his form.
He was
You don't do a call back.
He was the owner of this company.
You could walk in any bank now and I could say I'm the CEO of BTC. Who could tell me I ain't?
Nobody.
I'm the CEO of Biff. Right? Nobody could tell me I ain't. Nobody's to call back and check and then now you're asking for job letters. That would have said that he was the messenger. I don't even know. I think it just to say I am employed and I this amount of money I make. You know, you don't know the title. You don't know if he allowed to open up this account. Right? So that's what you do. People find all sorts of ways. And he got away with millions of dollars before they caught up to him. That he was depositing every check he picked up, he was depositing and saying, "Oh, I've been here," and they say their check ain't ready yet, and I've been, you know how they say these people just turning you around. That time, he deposited and withdrawing, deposited and withdrawing. And for a company like BTC or Cable Bahamas or you know what I mean, you don't notice it right away. Especially if you have 4 or 5 messengers. You don't know that this one set of checks missing. You don't know. You know. They eventually caught him.
Satisfactory evidence.
Before you read on my eyes, let me read that. You have to take that to like.
Yeah, right there, please. I just realized it. Yeah. Sorry about that. Yeah.
Satisfactory.
You were sleeping in the back there. You why wake these people up?
I'm eating in the dark.
Yes, they was having a nice nap. You just disturbed them. That's not their holiday rest. Okay, go ahead.
Satisfactory evidence of the identity of all account signatories, details of their relationship with the company, and if they are not employees, an explanation of the relationship all signatories must be verified. Satisfactory evidence of the identity of each of the natural persons with a controlling interest in the corporate entity other than a public trade company, being any person holding an interest of 10% or more with principal control over the company's assets, b who otherwise exercise control over the management of the corporate entity, and c where no natural persons are identified under subparagraph A or B. The identity of the natural persons or person who holds the position of senior management officials or official. The identities of all persons referred to in A and B must be and confirmation before a business relationship is established by way of a company search and or other commercial inquiries that the applicant company has not made or is not in the process of being dissolved, struck off the company's register, would up or terminate, round up or terminated. Such confirmation may be verified by obtaining a current certificate of good standing and equivalent document or alternatively obtaining a set of consolidated financial statements that have been audited by a reliable firm of auditors and that show the group's structure and ultimate controlling party.
Okay, a lot of companies like in Switzerland, when they come to open up accounts, they don't have it just say financial statements. They don't have audited. They have financial statements, but they have a lot of self-regulated bodies and associations that come around and check them. And so, of course, the relationship managers you're asking, you obviously are not trained by the Swiss. You're asking for documents that are not required even in their country where they're supposed to get them from, right? And so that's why they say, or anything that's, alternative to it or something similar. So, because these relationship managers, they seem to think that it's just no longer required. No, it still is required. And it was so serious that you had to document it and put that clause in there so they would know that it is still required. Just like in different Spanish countries, there's no certificate of incorporation. They call it an incumbency, and they have everything in one like that. So you have to be so specific just over the years for the nonsense that you go through and the headache that you have to deal with these salespeople because again, it's expensive. They want to open up the business, and the people really don't want to give you all this information. So they try to cut corners, and like I said, they come with this back and forth every day. Isn't this your Bible? Why aren't you following in it? Why do you want more than you're overdoing it? Blah 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 blah. Yeah. Okay. But you see the difference between what's required on the personal side versus what's required on the corporate side. Much more extensive, much more work required. So you should have it separated versus a junior person probably on the personal side and a senior person on the corporate side way more. Okay. Keep going. One more.
From a documentation standpoint, of the following must be obtained to verify the identity of a corporate client. The reason for establishing the business relationship, the potential parameters of the account, size in the case of investment and custody accounts, balance ranges in the case of current and deposit accounts, an indication of the expected transaction volume of the account, the source of wealth in circumstances where the SFI's customer
supervised financial institutions.
So you say supervised financial institution. A customer is considered a high-risk client. The source of funds and a copy of the last available financial statements where appropriate. Copies of powers of attorney or any other authority affecting the operation of the account given by the directors in relation to the company and supported by a copy of the respective board resolution. Copies of the list, register of directors and officers of the corporate entity, including their names and address. Written confirmation that all credits to the account are and will be beneficially owned by the facility holder, except in circumstances where the account is being operated by an intermediary for the purpose of holding funds in his professional capacity. Satisfactory evidence of identity must be established for at least 2 directors, one of whom should, if applicable, be and executive director were different from account signatories and such other official documentary and other information as reasonably capable of establishing the structural information of the corporate entity. The licensee becomes aware of changes in the company structure or ownership, or suspicions are aroused by a change in the nature of business transacted. Further checks should be made.
Okay, so you don't just wait until review time. If something happens, you know what I mean? I had my account for 10 years and now I got a PEP. Do you wait until it's review time to risk rate me or no? So some material change, or we read in the newspaper every day and we know Brave Davis' daughter and we know that her boyfriend has this account with us, and so therefore we pull it and we risk rated as high and we updated right then. So normally people just, they dread review and they wait. They don't even do it when it's review time. But of course we are going to be proactive and not reactive, and we do what we're supposed to do every day at our jobs, right? And so we keep abreast of the newspaper and we know when to update these things in a timely manner. Correct? So that's a statutory requirement of identification. The next statutory requirement is record keeping. And basically, Central Bank of the Bahamas says that all records after closing must be kept for 5 years. Right? That's the Central Bank of the Bahamas. I can't tell you what the Gaming Board says. I can tell you what the Security Commission says. Each regulator may have a different time frame. But where I work, Royal Bank, we had a securities arm, right? So that means we were regulated by the Central Bank as well as Securities Commission. The Securities Commission says 7 years after closing. So what we did, our internal policy, I worked at a Canadian bank, so of course, what did we do? Did we double that or did we reduce that?
5.
Central Bank say 5. Conservative Canadian, we put it to 10 years. We made room for human error because people have shredded before by mistake and before the time frame, right? And so it's a statutory requirement. You will be fined if you say, "Oh, that account was closed 3 years ago, so we just threw it in the bin or we shredded." No, you will be fined, right? The other day, the storage facility at Blake Road burned down, and all our national insurance stuff was in there. So when you go to get your pension, there may not be any records. You think if that wasn't a government entity, if that was a bank, because we had storage facility in that section as well, right around through the next block. Our one didn't burn. But do you think Central Bank? We could tell Central Bank, oh, the Blake Road storage facility burned down, and all our records, our off-site storage was there. What do you think they would say? You think they would give us a slap on the wrist? Big Royal Bank of Canada, private entity with all this money? What you think? No. So normally we have a backup. We have a backup system, right? And so we keep it online as well. Okay, and then we have like disaster recovery and what have you. So normally, if your institution doesn't have a scanning, you should scan everything in the system, and definitely if it's not scanned before closing, at closing, scan it in the system and put a retention date on it. And so everybody should have a retention policy within their institution and know how long, things should be kept. Right? We familiar? So again, statutory requirement for record keeping. Did you all read this, or most of us read this? You're familiar. Any questions on what it says? Do we need to go in detail? Or y'all get the gist of it? We should go into detail. Okay, I gave y'all the details, so not anything else left is That was the detail. The regulator says 5 years after closing. It depends on who your regulator is. What does it mean? 5 years after the people close their account, you must keep it. Now trust accounts are legal entities, separate legal entities. So we at Royal Bank kept our trust accounts for 25 years. Now I don't see anywhere in the in the guideline it says anything more than 5, but 5 years is the statutory requirement that you must retain that information. So if there is a FIU report or the people get charged 5 years after and we find out that all the money was in Royal Bank, they could, if come within that time and get the evidence. Right?
Right.
Okay. That's what it means. But if you all want more, let's read it so we make sure we get everything. We get it? We understand it? We sure? That's why it's important to read at home. If you read at home, we don't need to read every single word. We just need to understand it.
So that's pertaining to record keeping.
Record keeping, yeah. We good? Failing to keep records as per Section 15 of the FTRA. The financial institution commits an offense on the summary conviction to a fine not exceeding $20,000 if it's an individual who made the mistake. You say, oh, Miss Bullitt was responsible, charge her, or $100,000 for the institution to take the rock for it is $100,000. Okay? And the purpose is to assist the FIU if they have an investigation. Okay? We good? Okay, good. Next one, training. Okay? This is other than the statutory requirements, where they say describe 3, this is what they say is required for new employees. So annually you must hold, your institution should be holding AML training. This is what the regulators ask for when they have an on-site visit, and audit always ask, please show us your training logs. You have to sign them. You have to make sure everybody sign and acknowledge and that they understand. There's normally a test we got written up because we didn't test our employees. So I don't see it being mandatory everywhere, but they gave us a note for not testing them to ensure that they fully understood. So
are they supposed to be tested after the AML training?
they should be. And the passing mark with Royal Bank was 80%. So it wasn't but it was only like 10 or 15 questions. It wasn't no extensive exam. It's just like the basics, placement, layering, whatever. Who are the 3 lines of defense? What is record keeping and, all the updates from the FTRA and stuff like that. It depends on your institution, yeah. So they did write us up for not testing.
Is it a must that the individuals know whether they pass or not?
Yeah.
No, the reason why I asked is because we just started doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Teacher or whomever supposed to never come back to tell us whether we pass or fail.
If you fail, you have to retake it. Because they said in your next training test and send us the paper, so they was actually gonna check. So, okay, but this says, and if this question is on the exam, it normally reads, describe what is entailed in the statutory requirement for training, what you new employees supposed to get, what the employees dealing directly with the public, and what the account officers or they ask what do managers get. And so at different levels, you should get different training. Central Bank has now even implemented a training for the board. I had a person in my last class, and she said she was from Central Bank, and she worked in another department, inspections or what have you, and she was doing an ICA, and she said they went to a board meeting because they was doing an on-site visit, and they just happened to have a board meeting. They said, oh, let's attend it. And, the board is made up of people from the financial services sector, and then there's normally a priest. Mostly to keep the peace and keep praying for the people who like to fight. And so they asked, they say, they asked one by one different questions, and they came, I don't even know if it was the priest, but she said, they asked the person, how do you handle your PEPs? And the person said, a PEP. What is a PEP? I don't know what a PEP is. And so there's a person on the board at a financial institution, and they don't know what a PEP is. Right? We all know what a PEP is here?
Yes.
They on the board for a big bank. And so they didn't know what a PEP is. And so now Central Bank has enforced that the board is even trained annually. And guess who gets to do that training?
MRLO.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. So even the board. And so I guess later on it's going to be updated to include even the board. But if you're in the wiring section, this guideline tells you the FTRR, the wiring, or the one for wire transfers. The law requires the financial transaction reporting regulations require you to have a special training outside of the AML training because they want you to be able to look for trends and smurfing. Everybody knows what smurfing is. Like, I really want to send $15,000, but I can send 3 payments of $5,000, and they want you to be able to, like, you send in the wires every day. So you should know Miss Bullet buying the C-file account, she's buying a Rolex, and so they require more stringent training for the wiring department, and they now have an analytics department, and so they ask you to send that into them a confirmation that your wiring department is familiar with the regulation as well as central bank guideline and has had that special training outside of the norm training for everybody else. Okay? No employees, you should tell them what the fines are. You tell them they can go to jail. You tell them what the company policy is and all that, so they know to take it serious. You introduce them to the MLRO. You show them how to, normally institutions have an internal suspicious transaction form that you fill in internally and you give it to the MLRO, so you walk them through stuff like that. Depending on the people who deal with the public, they opening term deposits, cash withdrawals, letters of credit. You tell them what to do, what to look out for, what is suspicious, look out for things outside of the profile. They could even do a scan through the transactions to see, does this person do, you know what I mean? Is this the purpose of the account? Account opening, people, another set of training, but all of that is right there in the book, and so you could read it, and if that question comes, that's a very popular question. What are the different levels of training? Okay? Yeah, who should get what? What should new employees get? What should account opening officers get? What should employees dealing directly with the public get? What correspondent banking, if you offer wiring service to another bank, they also get a special training. Okay? And again, monitoring, the statutory requirement of monitoring. Same thing that we talked about. After these profiles are established, you monitor to ensure that they actually doing what they're supposed to do, right? A lot of the compliance departments, we have a trigger system that goes off. We get a red flag in the back end compliance every time something out of the profile or out of the ordinary goes on. If you work at a very smaller institution and they don't have the very savvy systems, is you do it manually, and it's very hard to do it that way. If you have a lot of because if they have 10 clients, sure, but if you have operational accounts, people paying salaries and inventory all day and what have you, if you have like a Toyota account or a BTC account, could you imagine how you keep track of stuff like that? A FYP, the JBR account. And you don't have a system that can flag every time JBR, say, with JBR said blocks and stuff like that. They buy cars instead, or something like that. So you have normally institutions good at having some system. It'll flag you and tell you the next morning. You see the transactions, and they tell you it's outside of the norm, and then you have to go and do an investigation. 90% of the time, you get a false negative. Or what is it, false negative or false positive, meaning that it's within the profile or the system, because normally you have limits. You have that, and you want to see every transaction. If you on the retail side, over 100,000 or over 1 million, depending on where you work, and so you'll get all those transactions over 1 million, but you'll realize this Toyota account, so it's within there, this normal for them.
Can you reject the transaction? Compliance department.
Again, you would have to have a control in place where you say all high-risk accounts come to compliance to sign, or all accounts over. If you're on the retail side, normally it's 100,000, I think, or depending on your branch, or I was a trust, so anything over 5 million, I had to sign. And so when they brought it to me, I look at it, like that's where you can't post reject it, done gone.
So
Wires, normally our correspondent bank would come back and ask a whole book. Who was this for? Why did they do it? Do you have source document? How are they affiliated? create me a pie chart on how this money is gonna go to the financial services sector, all kind of foolishness. Yeah, but the only thing you could do is if you do find something suspicious, if any money left on that account, you hold that, and you so no transactions until I finish my investigation or until I get sufficient information from the client. You find that it's very difficult if you don't have everything on file. Very difficult. They don't give you any more information. And then when you're dealing with governments and stuff, they say, oh, it's confidential. We can't really share that contract with you. We can't, that is for arms or for the army or for something like that. And so all sorts of problems you run into if you don't have sufficient information. But the whole thing is to know your client, because we had a situation where our correspondent bank did want more information, and we was dealing with the government, and they said it's confidential. They couldn't send it to us. And so the correspondent bank said, okay, Ms. Bullitt, I'd like you to write a letter and confirm that you attest to knowing your client. You attest to knowing that this is not a suspicious transaction. And I said, sir, I'm very, very sorry. You know what? I may know my client. I cannot attest that today, like I said, I could go commit murder after this holiday weekend. I could go, you could bail me out on Monday, right? So I am law abiding today, but anything can happen overnight, right? So I said that little while will not go, because I am not, attesting to anything on behalf of anybody who I never even meet. Even the people you meet, you got to be careful with. So, yeah, just be careful. But again, you pay attention. You make sure the right people sign it. You make sure they're in the messenger. You make sure they stay within their frequency and their amount. You monitor. Statutory requirement, monitor. Okay, the statutory requirement of the MLRO. Y'all tell me what that means. What is required? Who is the MLRO? It's a regulated function. Regulated function. Has to be approved by who? Your regulator. The central bank? And no. Yeah, no, you send them. You're approved by the regulator, but you have to let the FIU know who the person is. And if the FIU have a problem, then yeah, huh?
That's what Central Bank told us.
So you have to advise them. Central bank approves.
I'm certain just last week they told us that FIU approves them, and we just have to write to them to let them know that the MLRO approves that.
Central bank, unless the FIU in your regulator. Central bank approves FIU, you have to write and let them know. When we got audited, they asked us, they said, please send us a copy of the letter where you advise the FIU of who your new MLRO was. And we didn't have it on file. So on a Friday afternoon, I had to run down to a quasi-government building on a Friday afternoon and ask them to please give me a copy of this so we don't get arrested. I mean, fine, we don't get arrested. Yeah, so regulated function, right? What else you could write about it? But
Suspicious transactions to the FIU. I guess they verify whether
first you make a decision,
right? Whether it is suspicious.
Yeah. And then once you decide,
then you forward it to the FIU.
Right. Yeah. What else you do?
Keep abreast for information.
And policies and procedures would say, and you are expected to act reasonably and honestly. You don't say his friends, lovers, or family, or don't report him, right? You don't say no. He ain't really money laundering. Don't worry about that, right? You be honest and act with integrity and act ethically, right? Right. Okay. So we understand the statutory requirements. Give me 3.
Monitoring, identification.
Record keeping. Right. Okay, we good? So we have a fabulous holiday weekend. Okay, good. And we can read chapters 5 and 6. And I want y'all to with chapter 6 about due diligence again. Okay. So y'all chapter 5 is about the FATF, so y'all get some background on the FATF, on the CFATF, and what they do. Okay. And on page 37, this timeline was just the IMF was in here in December, and so this was just their timeline that they put in the book as a, so they was in here and said what they were doing, what they hoped to accomplish. We supposed to get out early. Why y'all sit here? Y'all have a break. We see y'all on Saturday, right? Saturday.
We inform them. We have quizzes or just before we quiz.
We don't have any quiz. Thank you. You see a quiz.
Participation.
Yeah, so that's the reading. And when I come, I say, how do you answer? I give you a question. I say, how do you answer this question? Don't worry, I pay attention.
So I get no points yet from last week? From
You want to read? You want to read?
Yeah, I answer question.
Okay, don't worry. I just know the people who don't get it.
Look, I changed my hair.
Ask them to photocopy this.
So, Miss Bella, you say if we go to meetings and things, we get an extra 5 or 10 points.
Toastmasters, Rotary, or Kiwanis.
Okay. So that's 10 points.
And come back and tell the class that you met people and what happened.
That's 10 points.
Oh yeah, and this lady right here was supposed to invite everybody, so she can get up fine.
You told me I got a triple.
No. You get 10 for participating and 5 for inviting everybody because you were part of a group already.
So we got the 5.
I should get the 5 points because I'm already.
Excuse me. So you can get the 5 to see a 10.
Yeah, and you all get the 5 if you all attend.
And then
She get the 5 for inviting.
So how do we subscribe?
Go on their website. There's somewhere on the bottom that says subscribe to Bahamas Services Board. So see, she tell you all Toastmasters, all kind of online. Yeah, so Rotary online, Kiwanis online. Just go online and look it up and look where the clubs are. Yeah, or go with her. She inviting everybody. Yeah. Okay, good. No class. Holiday weekend, no class. Yeah, so
no class on Saturday?
No, ma'am, enjoy your holiday. You want a class?
Very good.
Okay, good.
Thank you. And I read last class. So that's
excellent. How you get 20 points? It's 5 and 10. 20.
So you once you read once,
extra.
So once you read twice, you still only
And
get
you answer if you participate.
I participated.
Yes, you did. You did. Someone left the charger. That's that lady who was sitting right there. I think she'll come back. All right, good evening. Y'all take care.
Wow, I'm trying to love you later.
Yeah, you could.
Ooh, read that. Don't forget, Miss Bella, don't forget the test, please. We want to look at that. I need to see that.
I have the test right here. I call off those questions that I call off.
Late. You know, I was one of them late people today.
Okay.
Oh, so how much questions is being there?
It's normally be 10 multiple choice or 15 multiple choice, and then 10 essay questions, and you answer 6 or 7.
Oh, okay. They're worth like 20 points or.
Yeah. So I asked one on terror. I asked 2 on terrorism. I asked 1 on placement.
Right.
Remember, I asked 2 on statutory requirements.
Okay.
Right?
You want me to send them to you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
There you go. And 10 points for each one. So practice by. Sorry. There you go. Okay. Good.
Hi. What is the difference between a compliance officer and a compliance analyst?
And okay, that's just internal to that organization. So you will have to read the job description. But normally when you see analysts, they normally split it between AML and compliance. AML is opening up accounts and watching these transactions for these false negatives to make sure that these people stay within their profile. That's what the analysts do. Watch. Compliance officers are regulatory, dealing with the regulators, writing policy and procedure, updating stuff like that. You
So
know,
is it audit then compliance or compliance and audit? Like how
audit is
are they on
is
top?
yeah, they on par, but the compliance keeps the entire organization compliant, and audit comes and checks that everybody doing their job. Yeah,
Like,
so
I never go in the direction of audit.
yeah, but if you join a relief pool, because I was in audit for a while and I found it effective because I was in the relief pool, and my phone dropped and I can't kind of like this. Yeah, if